Marc Despain's wife, Michelle, has arrived home to a heinous scene. The father of their children is lying dead.
My husband.
And the investigation into his murder is about to unravel a diabolical family plot. It all seemed just too strange for a family man who seemed to have everything.
I can hear his laugh. I miss him calling me Mom.
His grieving mom, Tana, was so proud of the successful real estate appraiser and property investor who provided his wife and kids with a comfortable life in an exclusive area of Jonesboro, Arkansas. So why would anyone want him murdered?
He had a lot of people that loved him, and he is sorely missed. And his kids miss him too.
Tana says Marc was also a good husband to Michelle, his childhood sweetheart. The couple devoted parents to their two young sons, along with Michelle's teenage daughter from a previous relationship.
I liked her. As the children began to come along, I thought she was a good wife and a good mother.
Marc learned the real estate business from his parents, who themselves own hundreds of rental properties.
We all worked together, and we paid him for working with our real estate business.
Then, Marc launched his own realty company that Michelle helped him run from their home.
She liked to buy things for the kids, and it was always extravagance.
Michelle did pitch in to help support their rich lifestyle, keeping the books for her husband, as well as working a second job at a local bank.
The more money that Marc made, the more she wanted, the more things she wanted.
But the American dream Marc and Michelle built for themselves would suddenly come crashing down that day Michelle returned home from work.
What happened to your husband, ma'am? He's dead. Oh, no.
A hysterical Michelle calls 911 after finding Marc on the kitchen floor.
Ma'am, I need you to take a deep breath, okay, and tell me what's going on.
Michelle is almost incoherent as she tells the operator she's afraid for her own life.
I don't know if there's still anybody in my house. Please hurry. Okay, I'm gonna get them out there.
It initially appears to crime scene investigators that Marc had been killed by a burglar.
There were things that were out of place, drawers open, things on the floor. Someone had tried to go through the house looking for something.
But on closer inspection, Detective Vic Brooks comes to quite another conclusion.
The more I looked into it, the details, things that should have been taken in a normal burglary were not. It appeared to be as staged.
And Detective Brooks says Marc's murder also appeared to be premeditated.
There was what appeared to be one gunshot wound to the left side of his chest through his shirt.
And a second bullet wound in Marc's head apparently inflicted from close range after he'd fallen to the floor.
I refer to it as execution style, almost directly between his eyes.
Now investigators would begin the hunt for the monster who did this.
You're looking at anybody and everybody at that time.
Michelle tells Detective Brooks the last time she saw Marc alive was when he took her to lunch just a couple of hours before he was murdered.
You got back to work roughly 1:30?
1:30-ish.
Then, a little more than an hour later, Michelle says she dashed home to retrieve bills that needed to be paid that day, only to walk into that bloody kitchen.
And he was laying on the floor, and the, you know, I couldn't see his face because he was kind of looking this way, but there was some blood like all behind his back, running all the way back behind him. And I screamed to say again, and he didn't move at all.
Marc Despain has been shot dead, and his widow, Michelle, is about to drop a shocker on detectives.
I mean, I hate to think that his dad would do anything like that because it is his son, but he's just very, very cold-hearted.
But her father, Carl, and Marc's father, Jack, blamed each other.
Jack Despain told Marc, he said, "I will ruin you and your family." I've heard him say that.
My suspicion is that, did he finally fall off enough that he actually done something like that?
Detectives find Jack to be credible, and he is the first to be eliminated as a suspect. Then Jack offers yet another finger-pointing, telling detectives he suspects Carl's daughter, Marc's wife, Michelle, may have been involved in his son's murder.
He's good to me.
Investigators would learn that Michelle was in fact not so good to Marc.
You already have an intimate relationship with this other man.
was.
Michelle, who was 33, had her 24-year-old secret lover living in style.
She was paying his rent. She paid for him to move, bought him groceries.
With money, the big spending Michelle was allegedly swindling from the family real estate business.
They were in a tremendous amount of debt, and I'm talking over $2 million.
And Marc would confront Michelle about it just a week before his murder, saying he wanted to end their marriage of nearly 15 years.
It's always about the money with Michelle.
But investigators can't prove Michelle had Marc killed until they get a surprise tip.
It was actually the piece that broke this case.
An anonymous caller identifies a man who'd been boasting he pulled the trigger in the Marc Despain murder. Terrence Barker, street name, Quelo.
I didn't shoot no.
Barker initially denies killing Marc.
Son, I have got so much evidence, it's unfreaking believable.
Including eyewitness reports and cell tower records, placing Barker in a dark-colored Mercedes seen near Marc's home just before his murder. The owner of that Mercedes, Johnny Hubbard, would confirm to detectives that Barker was the man who shot Marc.
Said that he had a shot in the side, but then a shot in the face.
Detectives discover that Michelle's father approached Hubbard, who was one of his tenants, to kill Marc.
If you don't do what he tells you to do, you get on the street. Oh, well, yeah.
Hubbard says he passed the job along to Barker, a known criminal for hire.
Terrence Barker's statement is that Carl Kelly provided him with a firearm in order to do that with. He stated to me that she was giving play-by-play to her dad.
Right up to the moment of Marc's murder, sending her father an urgent text that morning reading, "Has to be today." Carl would reply, "Okay, can you get him to lunch?" And detectives say this surveillance video shows Michelle luring Marc away from his home office long enough for Carl to let Barker into the house. Detective Brooks confronts Michelle with the findings of the investigation.
I have the man that shot your husband, the one that killed him, in jail right now.
You know for sure.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. He is in jail. Okay?
Michelle refuses to answer any more questions without an attorney.
I don't want to talk about this again.
I know you don't.
Michelle's father, Carl Kelly, and gunman Terrence Barker would both plead guilty to the first-degree murder of Marc Despain and are serving 35-year sentences. Johnny Hubbard pled guilty to hindering apprehension and was sentenced to 18 years. And Michelle eventually pleaded guilty to a lesser charge of hindering apprehension and was sentenced to 30 years in prison.
And the day that they arrested her was the best day of my life.